Okay. So I'm going to start recording now, and I'm going to say that anything that I say tonight, I will, first of all, this will be recorded, and I will make this available for everyone to use. But not only will I make this available, but I'm attempting to try and record everything for you. Not only record everything, to put everything in writing for you. So you should be able to print it out and have it with you over the course of the holiday for quick reference. So I still think there's a value in explaining it to everyone hearing it, but and there's some things I probably won't be able to put into writing, but as much as possible, I will try and have everything into writing with links on the Bnei Yitzhak website and or email. So you should be able to have it with you so you could use it on the holiday and refer to it on the holiday. Just an idea of what we're going to do tonight. First, we're going to talk about the prayers of the holiday, of which there are a lot of changes. And actually, the holidays I'm actually more worried about people praying the right way than running the Seder the right way, because the praying is actually a little more confusing. And usually, even the experienced people are used to being just in the shul where there's announcements and things going on, and that's not going to be the case on this holiday. So actually, if there's something I'm worried about more, it's not the Seder, it's actually the prayers. So that's what I'm going to start with, so everyone is clear on what to do in terms of the prayers. We did make available the machzorim from the Bet Knesset. I know we distributed about 75 to 100 machzorim to people, which Hazak Baruch to everyone for answering the email. And if anyone else needs, so email me and I'll try and arrange for others. But so let's start with Wednesday night. So Wednesday night mincha is a regular mincha like any regular day, but our beat is actually going to be a little different. First of all, when can I start our beat? I really shouldn't start our beat until 7:30, 7:40. And why is that so? Because I can't start the Seder until 8 o'clock anyway. I can't start the Seder until about 7:58. So since I can't start the Seder until 7:58, there's really no point to praying our beat earlier than that. So in terms of our virtual praying, we're going to do 6:30, but even our beat shouldn't be till about 7:30, 7:40. So that's the first thing to note, is the start time is pretty late. It's 7:30, 7:40. Now, the next thing to know is that different than a regular night is that we have a special mizmor for the holiday, a special tehillim, which we say on the night of the holiday, actually all nights of the holiday. And that is Mizmor 1. It's from Tehillim, number 107, Kof Zayin. It's a very well-known Mizmor. It's a very important Mizmor. Actually, within the Mizmor, this Mizmor is important not only because we read it on Pesach, but actually it describes 4 different types of people who give praise and thanks to Hashem. And based on this, these are the 4 people that would bring a Korban Todah. But based on that, those are the 4 people that have to say Birkat HaGomel, which we're all familiar with. So who are the 4 people that have to say Birkat HaGomel? 1, people that cross a sea, so an ocean or a body of water. So that's why, or people who cross a wilderness. So that's why usually people, when they fly or they travel somewhere, they say Gomel, because they've either crossed a sea or they've crossed no man's land. So by doing that, you say Birkat HaGomel. What's interesting is the other 2, which we rarely have reason to say, actually we have good reason to say this year. The other 2 reasons why you would say Gomel is if you were bedridden with an illness or you were imprisoned. So we haven't been in prison, but we're beginning to feel like it. And so therefore, Birkat HaGomel and that whole Mizmor should resonate with us greatly. So if you have a chance to read it in English, I think it's very worthwhile. And if you don't have Tehillim in English, again, it's number 107. Just Google Psalm 107 or go to Sefaria or Machon Mamre or other places where you can get Mizmor 107 in English. It's a very easy read, and it's intriguing and interesting. It actually speaks to our times. So that Mizmor is said at the beginning of our beat on Wednesday night and Thursday night, and also on Friday night and every other night of the holiday. Now, after that Mizmor, we pretty much say a regular arbit, the Barachot, the Shema, and then we head into the Amidah. Now, the Amidah is a holiday Amidah. If you have the same cat in Machzor, right? So then you'll notice that the Amidah that we say that night is what you call above the line in the Machzor. So you say the above the line Tefillah that night, and that's the thing that you say in the Amidah. It's easy if you have the Machzor because it says that. Now, in addition to the above the line Arbit, we do something that we only do on Pesach night. It's the only time of the year that we do this, and that is after the Amidah, we say the full Hallel. We never say Hallel at night except for one night a year, or in outside of Israel 2 nights a year, and that's Pesach night. So it's a very unusual occurrence. It's the only time of the year that we do it, and that's why it's easy for people, if they're not prepared and they're not thinking about it ahead of time, to forget. But we say the full Hallel. That means with the Beracha, and all the paragraphs of the Hallel get said with the Amidah, after the Amidah. We say the full Hallel with the Beracha. Once we do that, we say pretty much we go to Aleinu L'Shabeach, and we're done with Arbit. So Arbit is a late start. It has the Mizmor. It's a regular Arbit, but we have the Amidah above the line for the holiday, and then we say Hallel with a Beracha. So that's Arbit. It's a little different. The next morning for Shacharit, it's kind of like a Shabbat prayers. You say the same types of things that you say on Shabbat, including Nishmat in the morning. You say the Amidah, that's for the holiday, which is above the line again. But after the Amidah, we say the full Hallel on the first day of the holiday. After that, we'll say, you could read the Torah from the book. You could see what it is. It's actually in the Machzor, if you have it. If you don't, I'll try and print out what it will have on it. And then after reading the Torah, before we say Musaf, you want to say the piece in the Machzor that is what we call the Tikkun Hatal. That's when we announce that we're changing over from Mashiv Haruach to Morid HaGeshem. So in the night of the Amidah, we said Mashiv Haruach Morid HaGeshem. And in the morning, in Shacharit, we said Mashiv Haruach Morid HaGeshem, just like we've been doing for months since Sukkot. But once we get to Musaf, we change. We say the Tikkun Hatal after reading the Amidah, reading the Torah piece. We say the Tikkun Hatal, and then for Musaf, already we say Morid Hatal. We switch over to Morid Hatal. So that's an important thing to know, is to switch over into Morid Hatal. Now, let's say I didn't say the Tikkun Hatal, I still switch over. If I say it, I don't say it, I don't have it for whatever reason, I still switch over, even without announcing it, we just do it. So once we get to Musaf, we know we switch over from saying Mashiv Haruach and Morid HaGeshem, and we go to Morid Hatal. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a second, and I'm going to unmute everyone. If anyone has any questions, you know what, if you have any questions, just unmute yourself on anything that I've set up until now. Anyone have any questions before I move forward? So that was all the first day and the first night. The first night and the first day. Okay, great. Seems like no one has any questions. Good. The next thing that I'm going to go to is to Mincha that day. Mincha that day, you can pray at 1:35 and on. So on the first day of the holiday, you could pray Mincha at 1:35 and on. And similarly, you don't want to start Arbit too early that night, because the Seder also has to be late. It has to be at 7:59. You can't say Kiddush before 7:59. So I recommend saying Arbit at night a little bit later, 7:30, 7:40. Now, Arbit the second night is the same as Arbit the first night. We say the Mizmor, we pray Arbit, we say the Amidah above the line, and we say, in this Arbit, we've already changed over into Morid Hatal. And after Arbit, again, we say the full Hallel. We say the full Hallel after Arbit. Or as after the Amidah in Arbit. But on the second night, there's one big difference. On the second night, we start to count the Omer. We start to count the Omer on the second night. I will be posting, the Hitteries have been gracious to digitize the Omer cards. I'll be posting on the website an Omer card, which you can download. So the Omer card is there. You'll be able to print it. And you say it the second night of the holiday. That's what we say the first night of the Omer. So it's important to remember that in Arbit after we say Hallel. After that, you say Aleinu L'Shabeach, and we're done. You go and you say the you go into the Seder. The next morning, it's pretty much the same as the first morning, in which you say a kind of a Shabbat thing, but you say the Amidah for the holiday, and you say the Hallel, full Hallel, and in both Shacharit and Arbit, you're already saying Morit Hatal. So that's the basic morning. It's the same. Now, the afternoon, you could say Mincha 1:35 and on. This is the second day. You could say Mincha 1:35 and on. On the second day, which means it's already going to be like the third night of this holiday, you can pray early. If you said Mincha before 6 o'clock, then you can start Arbit 6:15 or so. 6:15 is fine. So if you said Mincha a little bit earlier, you can get into Arbit earlier as well, which I think people are going to want to do for the Shabbat. You can accept Shabbat earlier. Now, this third night is not like the first two nights. It's a Kabbalat Shabbat. So first we start with Mizmor LeDavid, as we would do on a Friday night, and we say the things that we normally say on Friday night. Before we say Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat the second time, which we don't do, we would say the Mizmor of the holiday, 107, which we said the first two nights. That's in the Machzor. You should be able to see it, and again, I'll write that up, but that's a standard thing. There's no Hallel on that night. On the third night of the holiday, meaning the Shabbat, the Friday night, we don't say Hallel. Even though we said Hallel night 1 and night 2, we don't say Hallel on night 3. No Hallel. We do say the Omer after the Amidah. Now, the Amidah on the Friday night is below the line because it's a Shabbat Amidah, not a holiday Amidah. And in the Amidah, you have to remember to say Ya'aleh V'yavo. Right? So, again, there's a lot here, and I'm going to write this all up so you'll have it. But I just wanted you to hear it. So hearing is, a lot of people learn through hearing, and certainly reviewing and writing is helpful. So on the second night, you're going to say the Amidah of Shabbat. After the Amidah of Shabbat, then you're going to say the Omer for night 2. So you're going to count the Omer on the night 2. The only thing is, if you prayed Mincha early, which many of us are going to do, if you pray Mincha early, you can't count the Omer early. You have to wait till after dark to count the Omer, which is going to be about 8 o'clock. So Omer gets counted after 8 o'clock. On Shabbat morning, it's a regular Shabbat morning. The only thing that's different is that we say half Hallel. We don't say the full Hallel. You only say the full Hallel on the first 2 days of the holiday. On the third day of the holiday, which this year is Shabbat, and for every other day of the holiday, you say Hallel in the daytime, not at night, and only the half Hallel without a bracha. This is written in the Machzor, but it's good to have a reminder to do that. And then that day you pray Mincha for Shabbat and Arbit towards the end of the night, and that night Shabbat's going to end about 8:10, 8:12. I'll publish the exact time, but that will be the end of a 3-day holiday, which will be a long one. I've been asked to point out that over this 3-day holiday, something that should be obvious to everyone, but I'll say it anyway. That is, if anyone is ill, if anyone needs any medical questions or anything like that, especially as related to COVID, you are allowed to violate the holiday and or Shabbat in order to seek medical attention or to ask a medical question. Actually, Nancy Sutton of MedStar asked me to give you her number if you would like, 718-614-6711. Full disclosure, she is my mother-in-law, and she is available to answer any questions if anyone needs. If anyone has any doubts about how to deal with anything, she's been dealing with a lot. MedStar, 718-614-6711. If anyone has any doubt as to whether or not they have anything to do with the virus, illness, something, we violate the Shabbat in order to do that. I think everyone knew that ahead of time, but I was told that last Shabbat, a lot of things happened, and it could have been because a lot of people were hesitant to call. We should not be hesitant to call. Okay, all that is the prayers for the holiday. I'm going to stop for a minute. That took about 15. If anyone has any questions on any of the things that I said about the prayers, I'll stop here and answer any questions about the prayers. If not, I'm going to move on to the Seder, but I'll take a moment. Anyone have any questions? Anyone think about anything that I said? Okay, great, no problem. I will, as I said, I'll try and print this all out, and if you have a Machzor, you could follow in the Machzor, so that should help. Okay. As I was saying, I'm going to put some things on our website. I will put the list, the prayers that we just said, the laws of the holiday, which we published already, which are worth having, the Eruv Tavshilin, which we talked about last week, an Omer card, which I mentioned already, and also something I'm going to refer to now, which is questions for the Seder, things that might help you run your own Seder. What I'm going to do now is actually going to share my screen for a second, and I'm going to just show you something that you'll have, but because I'll send it to you. But basically, I prepared a checklist for a successful Seder. So if you're looking at this list, the wives are probably, light years ahead of us, as they always are. But just in case, this will be a checklist for a successful Seder. Everything that you need in order to and nothing that you don't for a Seder. So if you just look at the list, you'll see that you need a Haggadah. Everyone should have a Haggadah so that they can participate. A red wine or grape juice. How much? This is for each night. So you're going to need this for 2 nights. You need enough for 4 cups per participant. The next thing is matzah. You need 2 whole pieces per participant. If you're trying to figure it out, how much do I have to eat? Basically, every participant over the course of the night is going to need to eat 2 whole pieces. I'll get to that when we explain it. Maror, pretty much each participant needs 1 leaf of an endive, 1 leaf of a romaine lettuce. That's also one of the things that we do. Celery, you need a small piece per participant, doesn't need to be large. Hard-boiled egg, 1 per participant. Salt water, enough for each participant to dip into 1 time. Haroset, enough for each participant to dip into 2 times. A shank bone, which should be boiled, not roasted. I'm told braised is the term, that there's a funny way of boiling it with a little bit of roasting, and that's okay. A Seder plate upon which you're going to arrange everything on, and a cover for the matzah, 1 per table, and cups and glasses in order for people to drink out of. So that's the list that you need for a successful Seder. Again, this will be on our website and available for download and print and so on. So that's there, and that's all the stuff that you're going to need. Okay. Any questions on the needs for the Seder? Awesome. Good. We're ready to keep rolling. Okay. So,
Rabbi, the matzah cover, is it a special matzah cover or it's a regular matzah cover? Like, is it?
It could be anything. It can actually be a napkin. It doesn't even have to be anything special.
Not compartmentalized.
No, nothing like that. No. Okay. Now, sorry, I'm just muting you there. Okay, good. Now, in terms of there's before I get to the laws of the Seder, which are all printed out already on this, and step by step how to run a Seder, I want to say the following thing. I know that a lot of people are very apprehensive about this year's Seder, which is a little striking to me because it's not, other than it being a little bit smaller, it's not so different. I think people should actually feel the opposite. They should feel that this can be one of the best Sedarim that they ever had. And I'll tell you why. Because this Seder, by choice or not, I'm sorry? Sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay. This Seder, by choice or not, we will not be talking about what people are wearing. We will not be talking about where we are or where other people went. We will not be talking about who did what deals went down this past week, or anything of that nature, because there's nothing to talk about. And really, this Seder should be one that is truly focused. We're going to be sitting with a small group. Some people might even be sitting alone, so there's very little to distract us from the tasks at hand, which are important tasks. And my feeling is because of that, because our heads by now should already be focused on what we have and what's important at this difficult time, my sense is that this can be one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful Sedarim we've ever had in our lives. And I'm, for that sense, I'm to a degree, I don't know if excited is the right word, but anticipating the way this Seder goes, not only for me, but for a lot of people. And before we get all boo-hoo-ish about the way things are in the world today, I think it's important to remember and probably to point out to the people at our Seder that this is not the first Seder in tough times, even if it's our first Seder in tough times. People had the Seder throughout the Great Depression. People had the Seder in concentration camps. People had the Seder in the Warsaw Ghetto as they were being emptied out and it was closing in around them. People have had Seder in the most difficult situations that the Jewish people have lived in for the last 3,400 years. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind perspective-wise. So even though we might not be seeing everyone the way that we want, even though we might be fretting about the economic situation, which is not something that's a small thing to make light of, even though there's people that are ill or anything like that, if we think about the fact that Jews faithfully, loyally kept the Sedarim through the other things that I mentioned, I think that that should help us focus ourselves and put the proper perspective on what we're going through, which is not to make light of it or to make small of it. It's significant. But I think we get the opportunity now to have a Seder in a time that not everything's wonderful and that not everything's great, and to show that we believe in what we believe in the good times and the not good times and the less than good times. And I think that's a very, very significant thing to have in perspective to begin with. And I think it's a significant thing. I think it's a significant thing to mention at the Seder itself, is to say, yeah, this is a tough time, but we do Seder. You know, that doesn't mean we don't do Seder. And I think that's a very, very significant thing to keep in mind. And I believe for that reason, this Seder gives us a certain opportunity that we don't usually have. You know, I think one of the things that should help us also is not only that perspective, but a certain confidence that we should have in our ability to run a Seder. I think one of the reasons people are so worried is because they've been in other places where either one of two or both of these things have happened. Either someone else ran the Seder for them, or they were able to hide behind a mass of people or a lack of focus of what was going on them. And now there's nowhere to hide on this Seder. And I think that's I think that's where the apprehension around the Seder comes from. But I think we should feel better about it to know that on some level, there's no one way to run a Seder. And that there's lots of different ways to run a Seder, in fact. And the Seder mentions that in and of itself in the Seder about the four sons and the different answers that we give to them, and the rabbis saying it in the cave and so on. These are all aspects of the Seder. So the idea of having to get it right or live up to someone else's standard isn't what should be on our mind. The Seder is about us, and it's about the best Seder that we can put forward. And if we put forward the best Seder that we can do, then we're doing our part. There was a beautiful video, which I'm going to put a link to on the website, and I recommend. It's about a 5-minute video by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Some of you might have seen it. He sent it out recently, where he compares, as Rabbi Sachs and only Rabbi Sachs could do, he compares the Haggadah to Hamilton, the Broadway show. And I'm not going to go through his comparison to Hamilton, but he basically identifies 3 features that we have to accomplish at our Seder. If we do these 3 things, we've been successful. And we can do these 3 things. Number 1 is, do we identify with the story? Is our Jewish identity connected to the Seder, right? Do we say, hey, we're sitting here eating this matzah, eating this maror, tasting this salt water. Am I identifying with the fact that there was a group of people that were enslaved and then were set free, and that those people were our great-great-grandparents, and because of them, we're here, and we have this tremendous tradition, which we call the Torah and Judaism. If we can identify with that at the Seder, we've accomplished task number 1, is to identify with the Jewish people and our history. Number 2, it's about values. If we can share our values with our children and the people that are with us at the Seder, then we've accomplished mission number 2. And what are those values? Well, some of those values are things like loyalty to Hashem, which we just mentioned, but also chesed, kindness. One of the first things that we do at the Seder, before we start eating, before we even tell the story, is we'd say the halachma anya. The halachma anya is a way of saying, if anyone needs, come. Right? Now, the truth is this year, we're not actually saying that, but even on regular years, we're not saying that. We're saying that not to the outside, we're saying it to the inside. We're saying to the people on the table that our value is a value of chesed. And our value is a value of taking care of other people. And I think that's a significant thing to do. And even in this difficult time, but it's amazing how we're able to take care of other people. And I've seen with my own eyes a number of people, even though they're struggling, even though their businesses aren't where they're supposed to be, turning and giving tzedakah to others, helping others in whatever way they can, financially or not. And I think that's a tremendous value that we have. So the loyalty to Hashem, the chesed, the inclusiveness of the 4 sons, that we take care of everyone, that we leave no child behind, so to speak, at the Seder, I think is a huge value that we have. And there are many, many others which you're going to find within the Haggadah. And so therefore, one of the things that we have to accomplish on the Seder night is to transmit the things that are important to us, to share with our children and to have our children share with us the things that matter, the things that are important. So number 1 is identity. Number 2 is values, the things that are important. And number 3, you do just by having a Seder, is the continuity. The idea that just like you were a child at a Seder one day, and now you're leading a Seder, one day your children are going to run a Seder too. Little Nathan Pardo, I see you sitting there. Nathan, one day you're going to run a Seder, and you're going to run the Seder because you're sitting there with your grandpa and with your dad, and you're going to run a Seder one day because of what they do for you on Pesach night. And that's true of everybody here, and it's true of all of Am Yisrael, and it's been true for 3,400 years. Thank you. The idea that we're going to have, by doing this practice, by having this observance of making a Seder a night, we ensure that we create Jewish continuity, which is one of the most important, if not the most important things that we can do. So the Seder is about these 3 things: our identity with the Jewish people, our sharing of the values, and of course, our passing on the continuity. That's the purpose of the Seder. And if you think about those 3 things as our goals for the night, the identity, the values, and the continuity, you're going to realize it's less about what we say, but rather about how we make everyone at the table feel. If we can make everyone at the table feel that they identify with the Jewish people, that they share our family, community, national values, and that they sense that they're part of a story that's ongoing for 3,400 years, if we can get them to do that, we have succeeded enormously. As I said before, I honestly believe we can do better under these circumstances than we could do on the normal distraction-full circumstances. And I'm hopeful, therefore, that we're going to get this across. So that's my thoughts on the Seder at large. Now, one of the things that I'm going to suggest, so I'm going to share with you something right now. I'm going to screen share for a second, and then I will ultimately share it with you. Hold on. I have prepared, hold on, a document, which I'm not sure why it's not showing up completely. Hold on. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. I've prepared a document which I'm going to send out to you, which basically has, for different sections of the Haggadah, and here this is Avadim Hayinu, the rabbis in Bnei and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, questions at different levels that you can ask your children: elementary school, middle school, high school, and for different sections of the Haggadah. And each one is talking about a different value. We talked about values that we had. I'm going to see if I can add to it. I did this about 10 years ago, so you might have seen it 10 years ago, but these are timeless things. I will share this with everyone, and it will be on the website. questions that you can ask if you would like. So that's something, first of all, that I will give you. And I think it's something that you'll find useful and certainly great topics for conversation, both questions and I provide some short answers. But what I would suggest that you do, given that everybody's home, nobody's going anywhere for the next 2 days, I would say that turn to your children tomorrow morning, and they have about 2 full days, and say, listen, I want you to come to the Seder each night with one question of your own, right? Come up with a question that you have, something you want to know, something you want an answer to, something about the Haggadah, about the Torah, about the Jewish people. Ask a question. Let everyone ask a question. And that's a very, very important thing that we are able to do, is because we're in smaller groups, we have the ability for every single person's voice to be heard. And I think that's very, very important. That's one of the messages of the Seder, is for everyone's voice to be heard. So let them ask the question. And then step 2 is very, very important. Listen to the question. And I mean it seriously. It's important to listen to each and every question that everyone asks. And a lot of times we try and jump to step 3, which is answer, before we listen. And what I would suggest is step 3, you're going to see, is not answer. So don't go to step 3, because it's not even that step anyway. So first, let people ask, which means they have to be prepared ahead of time. But there is now enough time. Everyone's home. No one's traveling. No one's going anywhere. No one's shopping. No one's doing anything over the next 2 days. Every single person should be able to create one question, or if you want for both nights, 2 questions, which they can bring to the Seder. And I challenge that everyone should do that. Men, women, children, young and old, everyone can ask a question. And everyone should ask a question. Be prepared with a question. I suggest they write it down beforehand so they don't forget, and bring it to the Seder. Now, after they ask the question and you've listened to the question, don't answer it. Don't try and answer it. Let the table try and answer it. Let everyone talk about it. Work on it together, right? See what other people have to say. In fact, when coming up with answers and collaborating, borrow from something that we see in the Sanhedrin and the Gemara. In the Sanhedrin and the Gemara, the greatest rabbi was not allowed to speak about the judgment of the case until all the other rabbis on the court were able to speak first. Because once the greatest rabbi on the table speaks, then the others, then what could they say? He spoke. So in many instances, we are the elders and we are the older people on the table. And if we put something forward before anyone else puts something forward, then other people won't put something forward. So not only are you inviting everyone to ask a question, and you're inviting everyone to listen to the questions, you're inviting everyone to try and provide answers collaboratively, work together as a team to be able to try and come up with answers. And if your question is, how are we going to know if we came up with the right answer? If you did those steps, whatever answer you came up with is the right answer, because that's the right answer on your family table. You have the identity, you have the values, you're there for the continuity. So what you come up with, it's not going to be wrong. It may not be what someone else comes up with, but it will be the right answer, and it will be the right answer for your family and your Seder. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind and to be able to do. So that's my bit on running the Seder in terms of the conversation parts, the parts that are the scary parts, the parts that we don't know how to do, the parts that are not on a checklist. But if we stick to those ideals, if we stick to the preparation, which leads to asking from each person, which leads to listening, which leads to collaborating, which will lead to the conversation and the answers, you will have a fabulous Seder, and one that you will remember, and one that you will emerge stronger from as a family, and as an important family unit, which is the basic family unit of Judaism. So really, it's an opportunity. It's a great opportunity for your family and for all of Am Yisrael to be doing it this way this year. Any questions on anything that I said up until now? Any thoughts, comments? If not, I'm just going to go into the next bit, which is just some basic halachot to keep in mind about the Seder. Any thoughts, any questions anyone want to ask? Yeah, Morris, go ahead. I got you.
So, Rabbi.
Yeah, a little bit of an echo. Go ahead.
Major echo, sorry. What do we do with the grand? Whoa. Let me lower this. Better? What do we do about the grandparents who don't read Hebrew, are alone together, and haven't conducted a Seder in 60 years? I mean, is there any loophole? Can you do a Zoom meeting and put it on before the holiday starts? Or are they on their own and they just have to read it in English and do whatever they have to do?
So it's a great question, and here's my answer to this. So first of all, there's the loneliness factor, and then there's the functional factor, logistical factor. So the loneliness factor, I would suggest that that we create something for them in the afternoon, given that the holiday doesn't really start till about 7:25, right? Which where sunset. So I have all day on Wednesday, and certainly late in the afternoon, to be able to run all sorts of online Zoom things before sunset. And I really strongly recommend that. I know that's what we're doing in my family, where we're going to be getting together with people in the afternoon. And even though there are some people that are going to be alone, we actually have someone that's going to be one person. It's okay. They can run a Seder that way. If they are unable to read the Hebrew, no problem. You can read the whole thing in English, and you're not doing anything less. And in fact, I'd argue you're doing more because you're understanding and you'll know what's going on. So even though the people are going to miss you and you're going to miss them, they can still be having the Seder, and they will have the Seder with the knowledge that you're having the Seder and that you're doing it as well. And therefore we can't do it where we are Zooming. And even though there's, there's some rabbis, a very few and a very small minority, who are saying that you could Zoom, they're not, I'm going to say, I don't say they're not realizing, they're not taking enough into account the fact that if we don't make this statement about this situation, we're basically telling people use phones, computers, televisions, and so on holidays and Shabbat and so on, and we will have done incredible damage to those holidays, Shabbat, and so on. So I know this is a very difficult situation, and I think it stinks that we can't be together with parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, or whoever it may be. And in a lot of situations, those people are by themselves, or with one or two other people. And that's not the way you want to have the holiday. But there are situations in the Gemara and in the Halacha which talks about that concept of even one person, you ask questions to yourself and you involve yourself. I think one of the things that is a suggestion that people can do is there's a lot on the internet and a lot of ebooks and so on and so forth that a person could print out and read and understand. And the intellectual involvement on that night is a very, very important thing as well. So given that it's a night of commitment to what we're about, so it also has to be a commitment to keeping the Shabbat and keeping the holidays. And therefore, the Zoom, it just doesn't, it's not what we're supposed to be doing. So that's my piece on that. I know people want it, they want that, and they're looking for that connection. And we've been trying to do that connection on the Tefillot and the things that we're doing. But there's lines that need to be protected, and that's a line that needs to be protected. So that's my piece on the Zoom.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yes.
Can you do Kiddush for somebody else on the Zoom early, just the Kiddush for them, and without being Yotzei for yourself to accept the holiday?
You can't really make the Kiddush. You can't make the Kiddush over Zoom anyway. You kind of have to be in the room. So it's not
just for the sake of giving them some comfort. Or
yes.
Something.
If you're asking, can I do it without it counting? Yes, you can do that. Yes.
Yes, okay, that was my question.
Yes,
Okay.
that you can do, but it actually wouldn't count for that person. And if we're worried about it counting for that person should do it themselves later if they're able to.
Right, they're not.
I understand. I know where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. But we can do things before, right? The only thing that I wouldn't do before is I would not eat matzah before the Seder, which, eating matzah over Zoom doesn't do much. So I wouldn't, I would save the eating of the matzah, but certainly questions, conversations, learning. I think it would be great if grandchildren were getting on Zoom at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and asking questions of their grandparents. I think that's fantastic, and I think that accomplishes a great deal of what we would try and accomplish if we were in the room together. So I think that for sure is doable. But to do the actual Seder is not what we're looking to do, and it doesn't really work. So that's my answer to that question. I know I'm letting some people down on that, but I'll do it. I see a hand raised by Yvette Beyda. So Yvette, go ahead.
Question. Should we be encouraging older people to use the shortened Haggadah?
That's a good question. I did see the shortened version of the Haggadah, and Yvette, you can vouch for the fact that before they came out with this shortened version of the Haggadah, I said, listen, you don't have to say all the things that are in the Haggadah. Actually, there's very few things that you, quote, have to say. In my opinion, I don't really see a need for a shortened Haggadah in most instances because you could read it in English, and shortened makes sense when there's a lack of time or ability. But I feel like in most of our instances, the lack of ability is not there. And even if it's a person who's not used to running the Seder, print it out in English. It's not all that long. I think you'll find that if you read it from beginning to end, it'll take you, certainly in the language that you're familiar, which you could read it in English, it will take you 20, 25 minutes if you're going really slow. If you go quickly, it'll take 15 minutes if you read it in English. So I'm not really sure where the push is for that. But if you ask me, is it logistically, halachically acceptable? It is. But I don't think that that's what we're aiming for. I don't think we're aiming for expedience on this night. I think we're aiming for hit the target and have as full an experience as can be. And therefore, I would not be rushing to do anything. But if there's a reason to believe that cutting something out would be fine, I would say on a regular year. Right? Let's say your children are, ADD, and they can't keep up with the half hour, 40 minutes that it takes to read it. And by skipping the paragraph about how many makot were at the sea, you can skip that paragraph. There's nothing that says that you have to say that specific paragraph. That's not only true on a coronavirus year, that's true on any given year. The things that you have to say, you have to ask the 4 questions that you should do, and you have to say the Pesach, Matzah, and Maror that you have to do. In between, there's not so much that you have to say. Say Avadim Hayinu Lefaro b'Mitzrayim, and you've covered the basics, which goes back to the point that I made before of the idea of I have to live up to someone else's Seder. Actually, it's not necessarily true, and you don't have to. If you have difficulty reading it in Hebrew, read it in English. If you have difficulty reading the whole thing, okay, read it shorter. If you feel that if I say it shorter, I'll be able to focus on one part over another part, then that's okay. None of those present problems. And the truth is, that's true every year, not just this year. Hope I answered that question. Yeah, Jaime, I see you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, Rabbi. I want to know the part on the Seder where you have the 10 plagues and you're pouring the grape juice or the wine into the pot.
Yep.
Okay. I am going to be totally alone on this Pesach, so I have to do everything myself, and I'm the only one at the table. I have to pour it myself into the pot, and then
skip it. Skip it.
Just skip that whole thing?
It's a custom, and it's not critical. And so if you're able to, if you want to, and you're able to pour it with just the wine, not the water, you're able to. But don't, you if it's too much of a challenge, you can skip it.
But I could read it though, but not pour it in my.
Yeah, it's a custom. It's not at all, not even close to an obligation.
Okay, I got that one. That was the only thing I was worried about.
No problem.
Thank you, Rabbi.
No problem. We'll be thinking of you, Jaime. You can know that you could sit at the Seder knowing that we're going to be thinking of you at my Seder, and I know the rest of your family is going to be thinking of you also.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. So as I said, I'm going to try and post a lot of stuff on the Bnei Yitzhak website. You can check by the middle of the day tomorrow, by 12 noon tomorrow, and I will send an email out notifying where there'll be a lot of stuff that you'll be able to print out. Like I said, it's going to be an interesting holiday, very different than what many of us are used to, but in many ways, very much the same. We should try and grow from the similarities and from the differences. And we should. Our hope is that Hashem sees our efforts and our toils and our loyalty to Him and to the Jewish people, and that He gives us a redemption. We haven't really asked for too many redemptions over the years, and this year we're asking for a real redemption. We're asking for Him to save a situation in a way that only He could save. That's what we're going to be asking for, and Bezrat Hashem, He'll see the actions that we take on Wednesday night and Thursday night, and He sees that we act out of love and loyalty and faith and care for our family and connection to Hashem and to the Jewish people, both the people now, the people who were, and the people who we hope will be. And hopefully in that merit, Hashem brings us one of His super special redemptions, because we know we need it. I wish everyone a happy holiday.
Happy holiday and Zaka Baruch.
We're going to say our beat. I'm going to stop. Yeah. And by the way, and this whole class was recorded. So if you need anything, the link to the recording.